All right, so let's talk about the system of the week here for a second. I chose to do time management because this is something that there's a fabulous tool in our library for it, and it's something that every business kind of needs to use and understand. It's also timely because what we've talked about in the first 3 sessions is listing all your processes in the 4 functions list, building your organization chart and all your job descriptions, and then starting to document your processes using the process tools. At that point, time management becomes essential because now you've done your 5 to 10 hours to get organized in TouchStone, and now you're about to start documenting. And all these questions of when is the documentation going to get done? Who's going to do it? When's it going to happen? We don't have time. We're so busy. All these things kind of come into play. And if you don't think about a regular routine for getting it done, and you don't help your employees kind of organize their time in a way where they have a little bit each week to spend working strategically, building things and not just doing things, you don't think about that all in advance, then it gets to be just this thing that never quite happens. When people quit using TouchStone, they quit documenting their processes. It's because 9 times out of 10, they just don't have time. They don't spend the time. They haven't found the time. They get so busy. They don't do it. They ask their employees to do it. Well, they don't have the time. Months roll by, and they're like, we got to get back to documenting the processes. Oh, everyone's too busy. So this is this vicious cycle that continues and continues to get in the way of every business is having process dependency and really you're learning to use processes. So the best routine for over time getting your processes documented is to sit and think about who's going to be accountable for it. And you can look at your organization chart here and consider key employees and managers, or even yourself, and what you're going to start to document and when. You can go to each position. So if I have a salesperson and I know that I want them to be documenting their processes, or I want the sales department to do it as a team, or there's one key person that I want them to start to work on them, I would go to the sales job description and I click the title right here, and then I can even say in the title, this is my process to work on and I want it to be done by the 20th of this month. I want to see a first draft, and so then I give it my name and a title, and a due date, and then I save it. And then I tell the sales employee, go to your job description in TouchStone, click on it. You're going to see a process right at the top that I want you to work on, and it has your initials in it and a tentative due date. So you're assigning the processes and helping the employee to kind of spend time on it over the week until it's done. And you can do this all throughout TouchStone. Assign a process, assign a process. All the employee needs to do is go to that job description. They see it right there on the job description with their initials in it. They could even search for their initials if they can't find it. And then they see the due date. This helps them know when you want them to have it done by, and it also helps you understand when you've told them that you've delegated this and you need to follow up on the 20th. So time management. This is the process on time management. So there are tools within this process, lots of tools that help employees kind of understand what it means to manage your time. There's all of these work plans on daily planning, creating a daily activity logs. This is a great one on eliminating interruptions. So this is kind of study material for you or the employees to look at. There's even a tutorial right here on implementing a time management system. The essentials or the basic, I think, of good time management is, number one, knowing how to plan your day. So this is a tool called a daily planner. And in this tool, and you may be able to do this inside, well, I know you can do this inside of Outlook if you use Outlook, or if you have some other kind of calendaring process. But sometimes it helps to keep things simple and to not have to worry about programming it into a calendar in some way, but just to start with people on getting them to kind of see how to organize their day. So everyone has a schedule for the day more or less, And you want to put in appointments that happen throughout the day or meetings that are set in fixed times. Then you want to list out what are the high priority tasks to get done that day. What are the high priority phone calls you need to make? Inside of TouchStone, all of this is editable, so if this doesn't make sense for you, you can just change it. Just click the title and I can change this, or I can change the hours. So it's about having the employee think about what they're going to do that day. What do they need to get done? Oftentimes we start in on a day and suddenly things just start rolling, phones ringing, people are coming in, and before you know it, you're at the end of the day thinking, what did I do today? So this simple act of spending 5 or 10 minutes in the morning saying, what are my key appointments for the day? If you have a calendar, you can just block this off, and knowing that you know what it is on your calendar, and then listing of the tasks. So what this means is my high priority tasks, in the times that I don't have appointments, I'm going to do these tasks or return these phone calls. Help your employees and yourself to think about the interruptions. So these two tools, eliminating interruptions. Interruptions can be as simple as checking your email every 5 seconds. Always looking at the email, always looking at the email. That's an interruption. Rather than doing that, have certain times during the day when you check your email. Half an hour in the morning, half an hour at lunch, half an hour at the end of the day. Answering phone calls all throughout the day. There are some positions who have to do that. So there's yeah buts that people are going to throw up to all of this. So think through those things. If it's a position that is on the phone all the time, then that's their routine work. But there are many positions out there where people are answering the phone all day long, and these things are not emergencies. So isolate emergency from non-emergency, and think if you can build a schedule in for when you will be available to answer phone calls. When I get a voicemail message and the person says, I will be answering phone calls between 9 and 10 and between 11 and 12 and at the end of the day, I'm like, that person knows good time management. That's somebody who's controlling their time. So plan out the day. Put process documentation in as an appointment. It's not a high priority task. It's not an other thing you need to do. Put it in half an hour a day, an hour a day, as if it was the most important client calling you that day. This is the time to work strategically on something. Look at this with your employees, and tell them between 10 and 11, work on processes. If you have an emergency that falls into here and you have to use that time for that emergency, roll it over to the next hour. So have them consider it to be an appointment that they have, and consider what's doable for them. Can it be 1 hour on Monday and 1 hour on Wednesday? Can it be half an hour on both days? Could it be 2 hours on a Friday? So help them kind of plan it into their day. This active planning increases efficiency and helps the better use of time. Even if someone plans their day out at the beginning of the day and then they get to the end of the day and only a third of it happened the way that they thought, well, number one, they've learned a little bit more about how to plan better the next day. And number two, at least a third of that day was somewhat planned. And the more they do it over time, the more of a habit it becomes, and the more efficient you and your employees will be. If you have an employee who's all over the place, and you're always asking yourself, God, I wonder if they're actually being efficient done. I don't know what they're doing. Think about doing a time log or having them do a time log. So this is just a simple time log. All they would do is for a week or two, just fill in what they're doing every 30 minutes or so. The time they started the activity, they put the category of work. So if the activity is answer the phone, within the category, what was that phone call about? Well, it was about sales. Just have them jot it down. Some employees resist this. They don't want to do it because they're like, oh, this is going to take too much time. It doesn't take that much time. I think I saw a study a while ago that said it takes 15 minutes or something in an 8-hour day to sit down and jot down your activities if you're doing it briefly. It's not that much time. It's worth that 15 minutes for them to get a sense of what they're doing and how they're doing it, what they're spending their time on, and for you to understand what they're spending their time on. Position this with them as, this isn't me being big brother trying to, know what you do. It's more like, let's see what's happening here so we can help there be less multitasking and more efficiency. Let's both understand together what's happening. So have them do this for like 2 weeks, 1 week if they can, and then analyze it together. Sit down and look at it. And ask yourself, first of all, what's interrupting them here, which is important? Are they doing things they're not supposed to be doing? Sometimes this can lead to bad process documentation, or processes not being documented, so they're doing things just erratically because there's no system for it. But more importantly, it can help you go here to the daily planning, because in daily planning, you're being able to, help plan out what might be a mess of work into more of a schedule. So I'm just looking at a question that somebody typed in that I think is relevant to what we're talking about here. So they're asking if, let me look at it one more time. So they're asking if multiple employees can have different time logs, or should have different time logs, which they should. And then she's also asking if, related to policies, how you get employees to be able to see or mark off policies. So let's go, and I might go a few minutes over for those of you who can stay on the line. If you can't, that's fine too. So let's go over here to the home screen. So I think what the person is asking is related to the using of these tools. So the using of a policy, implementing it with employees, or the actual using of a daily planner or an activity time tracking in TouchStone. So over where we were over here is where the templates are created, where the documentation is created. Here in the control panel is where people use them. So if I go to the salesperson, for example, so I'm a salesperson, that's what it means when I have a control panel. And I go to this time management process, which is right here under my daily group. I select it. So I'm logged in as me with my own username and password. So the work I do here in this control panel, I'm the only one who can see that. Me and my manager are the only ones who can see it. So this is individual and unique to me. The time management process may be linked to everybody's job descriptions, or 5 or 6 people's job descriptions on the org chart. And all 5 or 6 of those people log in with their own usernames and passwords and access the same process. But when I go to complete it or use it, again, it's unique to me. So here's the time log. When I click this, it's going to give me a copy of the time log right here. So I can go down and put the time in that I started with, what I did. So I'm filling this out. And I can keep this open in TouchStone all day long. I probably suggest that they save it at least once. So now it's date and time stamped it and saved it. But I can leave this open in TouchStone all day long. The computers can. The employees can too. So they can fill it out throughout the day. Then once it's saved, it's going to date and time stamp it, and you save it last at the end of the day. And then it's storing this time log here in this completed folder. So if they had to log out of TouchStone, then they could save it, and then if they wanted to go back to it, they go to this completed folder, go to it, call it up, and then fill it out some more. So it's completed and saved. I clicked the wrong one, but it's completed and saved here in this completed folder. The next day, when I'm doing the time log for the next day, I just select it, and there's the form again that I'm starting in on the next day and time, and when I save it, it's going to date and time stamp it for that next day. So each individual employee could be filling out these time logs to their control panels. Once something's saved, they can export it in Word or print it if they want to as well. So if you want it to be external or outside of TouchStone, that you can accomplish that as well by exporting it to Word or printing it. Then at the end of the week, a manager could go here, and you could go and search for a specific position or employee that you know is going to be doing it, like Sam, Sally, whoever's doing it. Or you can leave this blank and search everybody's, and you could look for just the forms give a date range. If you run a report, then you would see, a list of all of the time logs that they had completed for that week, and you could go to them and look at them. For a policy, what I think is good is if, let me go back to, if I'm an employee and there's a policy that I need to, a new policy that I need to review, I go to that process. I'm in the control panel. This is that referral process and all the tools of it. And I go down to the policy and read it. So I'd read this policy as I was instructed to do. And then I would put read and agree. And then I save it. And a date and time stamps it. And it marks this as I have read and agreed to this with the date and time. And that, again, is also stored in the process, so in this completed folder. I've got other examples of this, but this is what it looks like. The manager can then run a report, or they could go through management review right here and say, I wonder if Sam did what I asked him to do and actually read the referral process, new policy. I'd go down to it, and I'd see here in this completed folder that he's read and agreed to it. So that's kind of how I would handle policies. It's not, I've had someone ask me this a while ago, we're not HIPAA compliant here. You can't do signatures. It's not, it's not legally binding in that way, but it's good enough for management purposes, because the key here is if you have a policy and you want to make sure employees have read it, that they go and read it and give you some evidence that they did. And then if there's a problem, I can go back to that employee and I can say, hey, here in your control panel, you read this policy on this date and time. Do you remember doing that? Yes. So what's the problem? What is the issue? And you can really talk about what the truth is about why they're not following it. And you bypass all this, well, I never got it, I didn't understand, I didn't read it, well, I told you must have misunderstood, you didn't really send it to me. You get rid of all of that, and you zoom right in on the point.